Good morning, good afternoon, everybody, wherever you are. My name is Mehrnoosh Azodi. I'm a Program Management Officer at the Secretariat of the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions. I lead the work of the Secretariat on the plastic waste in the remote and mountainous areas. And today, with my colleague Artem, we're your hosts for the side event today. Today's side event is organized in coordination with the UN Glacier Secretariat, hosted at UNESCO for the occasion of the first World Day for the Glaciers and the first World Water Day. Before we start, I give you an overview of the program today. We start with a video message from the Mountain Partnership Secretariat, hosted by FAO, followed by a couple of questions that is designed for you to provide your feedback. After that, I'll give a presentation to give you an overview of the work of the BRS conventions on the plastic waste in the mountains and glaciers. And we have two exciting speakers, one from the Basel Convention Regional Center in Argentina, and one from the government of Peru, who will provide you with very informative presentations about their funded projects in three countries of Chile, Argentina, and Peru. At the end of the event, there will be a Q&A session for your questions. Throughout the session, feel free to drop your questions in the chat box or your comments, and we come back to them at the end of the event. So without further ado, I'm going to ask my colleague Artem to play the video message from Ms. Sara Manuelli, Advocacy and Outreach Officer of the Mountain Partnership Secretariat. Thank you so much for this message by Sara Manuelli from the Mountain Partnership Secretariat. She's not here today with us, but our colleague Stefania Corrado, she's here from the Mountain Partnership Secretariat throughout the session. And if you have any questions about the activities of the Mountain Partnership, please do write in the chat box and she'll be able to answer those questions. So with that, I'll jump to my presentation to give you an overview of the work of the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions on the plastic waste in remote and mountainous areas. Okay, I think it's better if I share my presentation because in this mode, the animation doesn't quite work. So if it's okay, if you stop this, I'll just try to upload it. Would that be okay, Arta?
Yes, we can come back to the background slide, and then you can share.
Yes. Thank you for your patience, because there is some animation in here that was not functioning in that mode. So I start with giving you a very brief introduction into who we are at the BRS Conventions. BRS, Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions. It's the triple conventions that is administered by United Nations Environment Program, and its overall objective is to protect human health and the environment from the adverse effects of hazardous chemicals and waste. Okay. Sure. I think it's my presentation is stuck. Okay, seems now to be working. The Basel Convention specifically that is more relevant to the work of plastic waste in the mountainous areas and in the glaciers has three pillars. It specifically looks at the management of hazardous waste and other types of waste. That includes the transboundary movement of waste, environmental sound management of waste, and minimization and prevention of generation of hazardous waste. In 2019, plastic waste amendments were adopted by the Conference of the Parties to the Basel Convention, and that is the first international treaty to this date yet to regulate plastic waste globally. And that means that the exporting countries that are sending their plastic waste to other parts of the world need to obtain the explicit consent of the importing party before they can actually export plastic waste and other types of waste. And that is called a prior informed consent procedure. As you can see, as a Basel Convention, we're placed very well globally to be able to implement plastic waste projects throughout the world. As you can see, Basel Convention is back in 2023, was having 50 different projects globally working on different aspects of plastic waste management and environmentally sound management of plastic waste. Today, we have almost doubled that number of projects. Out of all these projects, around 11 of them are specifically focused on plastic waste issues in the remote and mountainous areas. Plastic waste in the mountains, as Sara Manuelli already alluded to that, is a huge crisis, and it's even a bigger crisis for the mountains and the glaciers. Needless to say that the production and consumption has grown exponentially, and it is projected to triple by 2060. It is a big contributor to the GHG emissions, 3.4%, and then you can imagine that it would have a huge contribution to the glacier meltdown. Packaging is usually the largest generator of the plastic waste, and out of all the plastic waste, plastic that we have produced and consumed since the beginning of the time of the plastics, only 9% or less have been recycled. Plastic waste contains thousands of different types of chemicals, and many of them are hazardous to human health and the ecosystem. Coming back to the work that we're doing at the Basel Convention Secretariat, in 2021 and in 2024, we did two global survey targeting mountaineers, snow sport enthusiasts, and snow sports instructors, ski athletes, people who spend a lot of time in the on the slopes and in higher elevations. We asked them different types of questions, but one of the questions that was repeated into 2021 and in 2024 was the type of plastic waste and the amount of plastic waste that they observe when they're in the higher elevations. Interestingly, as we know intuitively, the plastic packaging and plastic bottle is the most observed plastics also in the mountains. And shockingly, the plastic waste is not just only at the refuge or at the car parks. Plastic waste is seen all the way at the summit, and that is very concerning. That's why we have started this work back in 2019 with phase 1. That was the data collection and analysis. To phase 2, that we developed a series of outreach and awareness raising materials. As you can see, some of those images on the right side of this slide. If you go to our website, you can find them and download them. And today we're working with a lot of different countries across the world on funded projects and pilot activities. And this work wouldn't be possible without the generous donations of some of our donors, and you can see them on this slide. What are the drivers of the plastic pollution, and why do we see so much plastic in the mountains, in the glacier? At the higher elevations, there shouldn't be any plastics. But because of the economic growth and increasing in consumption, now plastic has become an indispensable part of our life. The analysis study that we did with Grid Arendal showed that tourism is the first driving force for the amount of plastic waste we see at higher elevations. And then you have the local communities that are living at the higher elevations. Surprisingly enough, around 310 million people, 12% of the world population, 700 million people, 12% of the world population lives at the higher elevations and in the mountains. These local communities do not have access to sufficient infrastructure, and that is for good reasons, because that higher elevations is not easy to have infrastructure and waste management system. Both of this, increasing in tourism and lack of the waste management system, causes increasing amount of waste. For instance, to give you a good example, in the Himalayas, and Mount Everest receives 40,000 people every year, and 400 of alpinists actually get to the summit. You can imagine each of these mountaineers can have an oxygen capsule, a lot of equipment, food that is wrapped in plastic. On the way coming down, they leave everything behind. At 8,000 meters, no normal person can get there to collect waste or plastics whatsoever. So plastic waste should not even get to those elevations to begin with. Then we have another issue that is less visible, or it's not visible at all, and that is microplastics. Microplastics is a result of decay, degradation, and fragmentation of plastics over time. And the problem with that is that it travels long distance. They did a research study in the Alps in Switzerland, and they found microplastics in the snow, in the glacier. And now microplastics are found everywhere, not only in the glaciers and higher elevations, but also in every organs in our body. What makes it so challenging? Like I said previously, the first and foremost, there is these places are remote. The climate is harsh, and such as Mount Everest at 8,000 meters above the sea level, there's not normal people can go and actually have waste management systems. So the plastic waste should not even get there in the first place. Then sometimes there is insufficient legal and institutional frameworks that would specifically look at the plastic waste in the mountains, or even plastic waste in a bigger picture nationwide. And the local communities that are working and living in those mountainous areas, they rely on the mountain resources, and more they see open burning and dumping of plastic waste close to where they live. Coming to what we do, that's why it's the plastic waste in the mountains and glaciers is a problem that needs to be tackled from different angles. And that is why we address this issue, and we try to work on it from 4 different aspects. On policy, we need legal and policy frameworks that are tailored to the local context. We need financing to be able to address issue. We need infrastructure, and we need outreach. So before I jump into the type of projects that we do, the first project that we did in 2023, the pilot activity was in North Macedonia, Sara Mountains. And you see Joost, my colleague, program management officer at the Basel, he traveled as part of the project there. And we have a video to show you to see what we did in the Sara Mountains, North Macedonia. And so for now, I ask my colleague Artem to play that video for you. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed that video and you see my presentation again. Gonna go full. Yeah, so the project in North Macedonia was one project that tackled the issue of plastic waste in a ski resort from 4 angles. The subtitles were very small. I don't know to what extent you were able to see, but as part of that, we were able to install waste collection points, plastic waste collection points throughout the ski resort. They were branded. They had messages, brochures, and handouts were produced as part of that, and in different languages, and were given out, and several training sessions were organized. on that ski resort. So that was a good example of how we try to tackle the issue on that ski resort from the infrastructure, finance, policy, and outreach. Today, like I said earlier, we have funded projects in 11 countries. And I am also myself looking forward to hear today from about 3 of these projects. Peru, they completed their projects this year, end of last year, this year. And we're going to have a project in Argentina and Chile. And our speakers will talk about those projects shortly. Coming back to the 4 aspects or 4 angles that we need to tackle, and we try to address them through our funded projects. First, and one of the very important one, is financing. Financing is not an easy task, especially when it comes to the mountains and higher elevations, but different governments across the world are coming up with different schemes. For instance, in Eswatini, that we just started this project, the government is coming up with extended producer responsibility scheme, and they're going to apply that to plastic bottles. And these type of schemes, for instance, EPR, extended producer responsibility, will help to raise finance to be able to manage the plastic waste. There are other type of schemes such as fees and taxes, and other types even such as fines or deposits. For instance, for the Mount Everest, the example that I continue coming back to it, they have come up with a system of a deposit of $4,000 for every expeditions. And that means that everything that the expeditions take with them, they need to take them out. And if not, they may lose that $4,000 deposit. Policy is also very important. Like I said, every country needs to come with an analysis of their national legal and policy and institutional framework to be able to understand where the gaps are and how they can strengthen enforcement or come up with framework when it's absent. In a lot of our projects, the countries have been working on analysis of legal frameworks in order to be able to implement the Basel Conventions requirements more better, but also specifically come up with maybe policies for the mountainous regions, for instance, or for the remote areas. For instance, we have a project in Seychelles as part of our remote areas projects. And Seychelles is consisting of several islands. And in one of the islands, the government is coming up with a policy of no plastic bottles. So they're going to ban the plastic bottle completely on one island as a pilot and see how the results will turn out. Infrastructure in the mountainous areas is expensive, and it's not always possible. It's not possible to, in Himalayas at higher elevations, have infrastructure or waste management system. That's why governments need to work with a combination of this type of measures to be able to prevent plastic waste in the mountains. Yet, we have countries that are working on sustainable infrastructure. For instance, in Kazakhstan, Ayusai National Park near Almaty, our partners were able to come up with a partnership with transport and recycling facility. They installed the plastic bottle, glass, paper, and aluminum collection points. They installed a press machine to compress the waste. And they are working with this recycling center to come and pick up the waste and take it to Almaty for recycling. And this is an example of a sustainable infrastructure system that they have come up with. And to this date, the facility they have set up is still working. All of our projects have an outreach component because it's important. We cannot work in silos. We also need to raise awareness about the issue through individuals, through snow sports enthusiasts, and through all the relevant stakeholders to be able to be successful. That's why we always have that component in all the projects. And the partners work with schools, with universities, research institutions, but also the municipalities and government stakeholders to raise awareness about the issue and especially educate the groups of people that are more dealing with this issue, is either local communities or youth or people who are doing snow sports. as part of our work, we have come up with a memorandum of understanding with 3 international snow sport associations: Interski International, IZIA, and IAESS. And we're developing educational materials that are targeted for these group of people. To conclude my presentation, we need all hands on deck to be able to address this, meaning that at local level, we need mountain guides, individuals, municipalities, park administrators. At national level, we need to have effective legal and institutional frameworks that are tailored to the local context and are enforced effectively. At regional level, we need cross-border cooperation. One good example of that is Carpathian Conventions, because the mountains are not necessarily confined to the borders of one country, and Carpathian Mountains is one good example of cross-border cooperation. And at global level, we need everybody to come together, and Mountain Partnership is a great example of that. Thank you so much for your attention. Please do check our website. You can Google mountain plastic waste in the mountains BRS conventions, or you can reach out to me through my email, and that is on the as you can see it on the slide. And with that, I thank you again, and we can now move to our next slide, next presentation, and that is Basel Convention. No, I'm mistaken. No, it's Peru. We have Sergio from Government of Peru that would provide us with the next presentation. Yeah. Floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you, yes. Well, this is Sergio Dinklang. I work for the Ministry of Environment of Peru, and we are happy to be here and have the opportunity to present some of the results of the implementation of the project Plastic Waste in Remote and Mountainous Areas in Peru. So let me start with my presentation. I will go to the next slide. This is just a brief information here. Why are high mountain ecosystems in Peru so important for us? As you can see, they represent 20% of Peru's surface area. And also, we have the 6.6 million inhabitants live in high mountains ecosystems, which represents 27% of the Peruvian population. Peru has a total of 4,231 glaciers also, and it's important to know that Peru has 68% of the world's tropical glaciers. Now, regarding the main mountain range in Peru, we have 3 main mountain range. Those are mountain range Blanca, Vilcanota, and Vilcabamba. And this mountain range represents the 72% of the total area of mountain ranges in Peru. Also, they have a big amount of glaciers. 1,484 glaciers, just these 3 mountain range. These are some of pictures that I would like to share with you. And we have, one of them is the Pastoruri, Quelcaya, Yanapacha, Coropuna, y Huascarán. Please keep in mind this one, Pastoruri and Huascarán. Those glaciers are in the National Park Huascarán, which is the target area of the project that was implemented in Peru. But why are important the glaciers for Peru? As we know, and as it was mentioned before, the glaciers are an strategic freshwater reserves, and they also support the life and the human development, and they are a natural indicator of climate change. With regard with the challenges for plastic waste management in mountainous areas, we find that there's a lack of information on the amount and types of plastic waste generated in the specific place that we analyze it. And there are also limited resources and infrastructure for the segregation, collection, transportation, handling, and disposal of plastic waste. We have an estimated waste collection rate in rural areas in Peru between 45 and 50%. And we have another thing that there 49% of the plastic waste are estimated to be mismanaged, that they don't go to a disposal facility with good standards. Additional difficulties in controlling and managing solid waste from tourist activities, particularly in remote and higher elevations where the excursions take place. And there is also a lack of environmental culture regarding proper waste management. Here, if you take a look at the right side, and this is a new in a local news station, and there is that more as a result of this activity, more than 1,000 kilograms of waste collected during an educational campaign in the national park was Karang. Of course, this waste was the result of the not good practices of the visitors and, of course, of local communities also. So these are the main challenges. And now, if we take a look of the solid waste generation in Peru, for example, we have that in 2023, there were 23,853 tons per day of solid waste were generated. And if we estimate how much of these solid waste were generated in mountainous area, we are talking about a 23% more or less. Well, in this frame, Peru has advanced in regulation and some initiative and activities in order to promote a sustainable plastic consumption and production. I won't go deep into these activities, but just to highlight that in 2024, one of the projects that we implemented was this one, the plastic waste in mountainous and remote areas in Peru, with the support of Basel Convention. Maybe just to highlight, this is one of the more representative activities that we established in Peru is our law, the 30AA4, that is a law that regulates the single-use plastic and disposal containers or packagings, which the main objective is to establish a regulatory framework that allows us to promote a more sustainable consumption and production of single-use plastic products. This law bans some items that, as are shown here, like single-use plastic carrier bags, single-use plastic straws, non-recyclable plastic tableware and utensils, and EPS containers and cups. And of course, those are banned in the whole Peruvian territory. Now, regarding with the project, the project in the case of Peru, the objective was to improve the capacity, infrastructure, and knowledge and experience of relevant decision makers regarding the environmentally sound management of plastic waste and the reduction of plastic waste generation. We had 4 activities. The first one was to develop an inventory of plastic waste, a national inventory. We also implement a pilot project on prevention and environmentally sound management plastic waste. And we also execute awarenesses and education activities for tourists and mountain guides. And the 4th activity was to disseminate all the results of the project. As a result of the development of an inventory plastic waste, we have this first exercise. We gather a lot of important information for us, and we could estimate different range of solid waste generations and how it moves into the territory of Peru. And just to highlight that the informal sector plays a crucial role in the collection, sorting, and recycling of plastic, especially in areas where the coverage of formal services are limited or non-exist. And to improve the inventory, there is a significant information gap here. So a next version of the inventory should prioritize some collection of primary information. No? This exercise allows us to identify some information gaps in Peru for a next step. Also, regarding the second activity of the project, as I mentioned, our target area was the Huascarán National Park. That this has one of the highest peak in Peru, that is the Nevado Huascarán. It has within 660 glaciers and 300 lagoons and glacier origins. And there are also tourist activities like mountain biking, skiing, climbing, and others. And we have around 25 trekking circuits here and 102 climbing destinations. And also we have 33 archaeological sites have been identified here. No? So that's some of the reasons that we choose this area for the implementation of the pilot. During the implementation of the pilot, we organized 2 consultative meetings with the stakeholders to identify them. We carry out a workshop specific with the National Service of Natural Areas Protected by the state, CERNAM, that is our authority that is in charge of the National Park Huascarán. And we also implement some equipment that I will show you in the next slides. This exercise allowed us to identify a lot of stakeholders, direct and indirect, related with the tourists here. And those are listed here. We have, for example, tour operators, tourist guide associations, rural communities, high mountain study center, tour guide training institutes, park rangers and community watchmen, associations of services, and others. For the project, we established 5 sectors of particular importance, and we did field visit in which of them. The first sector was Yanganuco. Here are some pictures and what we found. There are some opportunities to improve the solid waste here. We found containers that exceed its capacity, and also we found containers that are there in the place, but they are not used because they are not used by the visitors. Here are some additional pictures. The second sector was Churup. Here are also some pictures here, and we also evaluate and identified the already existing educational material in the place and identify some opportunities to improve them and to develop that. It was the basis for develop a campaign here that I will show you in the next slides also. Here's some additional pictures. Please. No, the images are common, and it's what we found here. So what were the key findings of these activities? Was there is plastic waste, mainly food and beverage containers and packaging. There are waste containers, but they are not used properly, as I mentioned. There are financial limitations on waste collection by local governments. There is a lack of environmental culture among some actors in the place. There is a need to strengthen the control and enforcement of the plastic law, the bans that I mentioned. There is a need to work with transportation companies, and there is a large variety of plastic products and materials in the place. Also, as a part of the project, we identify which were these 5 main sectors to be prioritized for the activities, and as those were that what I mentioned, Ulta, Chinancocha, que es Yanganuco, and Carpa, Huaripampa, Yanganuco. In those places, we also identify which month of the year more waste are generated. And of course, we make some interviews to the visitors, and we identify what kind of potential plastic waste could be generated in the place. One of them to highlight is in line with what's mentioned in the before presentation is the bottle for waters. So some of the activities that we are proposing are the removal of small and dilapidated containers that are not used, support in the removal of complex non-municipal waste, for example, like electronics, tires, and light furniture that were found in the place, implementation of containers as at a key control points, implementation of specific containers for plastic bottles and other recyclable waste, establish more strengthened control to the entry of certain plastic products, training for key actors, and educational and awareness campaign. So we implement 7 containers for the exclusive segregation of plastic bottles and 5 solid waste segregation stations. Each station consists of 2 containers for waste classifications. So here are some pictures of what we implement. Those are the containers specific for bottle, and this is when it was explaining to the local actors. Here are some additional pictures. Also, there are some news. There were some local news in the place regarding this. And of course, we developed all the educational material, including the labeling of the containers, in order to facilitate the use of this. And with regard with the awareness raising and educational activities, we carry out 10 training workshops to the stakeholders in order to teach how to implement the educational campaign. After that, we carry out 12 environmental education awareness and information activities with different actors. We developed, as I mentioned, educational content and teaching materials on plastic waste for the use of mountain guide schools and outreach materials aimed at tourists. And we print these materials. Here are some additional pictures of the meetings and the activities. With different stakeholders. It's just here we have just an additional pictures about the educational material itself that will be spread through the National Natural Park area Huascarán. So we develop educational and awareness raising materials, educational flips, charts, posters, flyers, triptychs with good practices, educational panels, and we also prepare some merchandising and clothing here. So this is just to take a look of the material that we developed here. As I mentioned, the campaign is Deja huellas, no residuos, which means left footprints, not waste in place. So we are planning to work with a prevention approach in order to avoid and don't let that the plastic waste reach the mountains. This, I think, is the best way. Here are some pictures of the material that we developed here. Also, we developed an educational kit that were delivered to the local government in order that they could replicate these initiatives. Of course, they were they had capacity workshop on how to use this material. And what is important to know is that the Ministry of Environment of Peru have make this new campaign part of the campaign staff of the ministry, and we are planning to replicate this initiative in other mountainous and remote areas in Peru. And these are some upcoming campaigns for 2025 that we are intending to do. Also, I think that's important, not to replicate and to scale up the results of the project, and this is what we want to do. And these are some other potential places to replicate this activity. Then I think with that last one, I finished. I hope I haven't passed the time. Sorry if I did. And just to thank you again for this opportunity to present the results of the project. And of course, thank you to the whole technical team of the Secretariat of Basel Convention that were make that this thing possible for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sergio, for this great presentation and beautiful, stunning photos of Peru. We almost felt like we traveled there, and we were part of that project. And it was a great project indeed, and it gave so many great results and outcomes. And we hope that Peru is continue to work on that and replicate or scale it up in other places is all very great to hear. So with that, I give the floor to Alberto from the BCRC Argentina, and he'll present to us the plans for two great projects in Chile and Argentina. Alberto, you have the floor. Thank you again, Sergio.
Here where I am. My name is Alberto Santos Capra. I'm from the regional BCRC, Basel Convention Regional Center in Argentina. And yes, well, as a difference of Peru, we are starting the project. So we have this project with the Basel Convention, tackling plastic waste in Argentina and Chile's mountain regions. That is like a project launch we're doing. That what is a BCRC? We are in the frame of the Article 14 of the Basel Convention. So we have 14 regional coordinating centers that assist countries in the implementation of the convention, of the Basel Convention, but in general in all the chemical and waste agenda. So our functions as principal include training and technology transfer in the management of hazardous and other waste, as well as the prevention and minimization of their generation. In the case of Argentina, this is located in INTI, which is the National Institute of Industrial Technology, and we assist the countries that you see here: Chile, Bolivia, Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, Venezuela, Brazil, Paraguay, Uruguay, and of course, Argentina. So what about these two countries? So we are running a project where we have a bordering. Our bordering is a geographical border between Argentina and Chile, and it rounds all over bordering of our two countries from north to south until the Antarctic. And these are the Andes, the major mountains bordering both countries. So in the case of Argentina, runs along the western edge of the country. Some of the highest mountains are included Aconcagua with almost 7,000 meters. And we have the highest volcano in the world, which is in Catamarca. It's a province, Ojos de Salgado. It is almost as well 7,000 meters. The other one is Aconcagua. It's in a place called Mendoza. It's a province. As well, we have Chile as well. The Andes are dominated in the eastern Chile geographic. Notable mountain included, for example, Nevado de Tres Cruces, 6,200 meters, and Monte San 4,000 meters, the highest peak in Patagonia region. So our mountain has as well glaciers. So Argentina, the country is home to several glaciers, especially in the Patagonia, such as the Perito Moreno Glacier, one of the few glaciers in the world that still is advancing. And in Chile, we have the Aysén and Magallanes region with glaciers like the San Rafael Glacier that are well known for their impressive size and color. These glaciers are crucial for freshwater supply, local biodiversity, and tourism. So as Sergio said from Peru, the importance of mountains and glaciers for our countries are natural resources and ecosystem services. Mountains and glaciers are essential for freshwater conservation, agriculture, hydroelectric energy, providing water regulation and climate stabilization. Tourism as well, both regional thousands of tourists every year, contributing significantly to the economy, but as well to the impact. Biodiversity, they are home for endemic species and unique ecosystem. They sustain diverse flora and fauna and provide several ecosystem services like water regulation and supply, climate regulation, and carbon storage. What about the population in our regions? So in Argentina and Chile are living about 2,000 meters are low. So very few permanent settlements due to the extreme conditions. But there are very few towns as well or cities in glacier regions or in high mountains areas, for example, Las Cuevas, to 3,000 meters in Argentina has a population around 100 to 200 people, with more people arriving during the tourist season. So in general, they're a small town, but are very impacted for the tourism. And although they are not in the high peaks of the mountain, they are in the basement of them. So the impacts are already very important. In general, more the population, as I said, in both countries, low in lower areas where the climate is more temperature and accessible. In Argentina, it's less than 1% of the population lives about 2,000 meters, while in Chile is more, is 2% living in high altitude regions. The challenges of plastic waste at high elevations. Of course, the population, plastics, bottles, and wrappers accumulating in remote areas due to tourism and lack of waste management infrastructure. Environmental impact, plastic can take centuries to decompose, as you know, affecting local wildlife and flora. And some solutions are recyclability initiative and environmental awarenesses, efforts to reduce plastic footprint in this area. As Sergio said before, try not to use plastic, especially at high levels. So tourism in high altitude and glacier regions is a major attraction in Argentina and Chile, drawing thousands of visitors each year, especially in the central of the Andes and in the south. These areas are unique because of the landscape and adventure activities, but also face environmental challenges due to the increase of human presence. So popular activities, as Sergio says before as well, trekking, ice climbing, boat tours, sightseeing, for example, most in Perito Moreno on San Rafael Glacier, Chile, in Camp Mountains areas, mountaineering, skiing, hiking, wildlife observation, in Aconcagua in Argentina, Nevado Ojos del Salado in Chile. Tourism infrastructure is needed, mountain shelters at base camps used by climbers and trekkers, ski resorts and lodges, in general, environmental impacts with plastic waste, soil erosion, air pollution. That it was the Secretary of the Basel Convention assist both countries through the agency executing this project, which we are, the Basel Convention Regional Center, and through a small agreement of funds, and the main national stakeholders will be Argentina, the Undersecretary of Environment, and Chile, Ministry of Environment. The project is duration 1 year. Implemented agencies, as I said, the grant is 70,000. The main beneficiaries are Argentina and Chile, and the project aims to enhance the capacity, knowledge, and expertise of relevant decision makers regarding the ESM of plastic waste and the reduction of plastic waste generation in mountainous areas is part of the broader initiative, as Mehrnoosh said, plastic waste in remote and mountainous areas. So we have 5 components here. So we are starting already. The first one is executed awareness raising, education activities, and capacity building. The second one is field monitoring and research into plastic waste degradation in mountain areas. One of the other things is a third one is implement a pilot project in selected mountain areas in Argentina and Chile, improve the ESM of plastic waste in the 4. And the final one is to disseminate knowledge and results of the project. So one of the projects as well, as regards monitoring, we're thinking of having samples and see how we can manage microplastics microplastics in the environment. So we are part as well of an international initiative in the frame, on the edge of the negotiation of the plastic waste. And this is related to monitoring and harmonizing and standardization of the monitoring of plastic, microplastic, nanoplastic. And this is a work that is being done by UNEP and the International Organization of Atomic Energy. And we are participating of this initiative. And I think that both countries can benefit from this knowledge. And we are trying to do some kind of interlaboratory exercise, taking samples and maybe analyzing and see what's about microplastic or microplastic in the environment. So the main expected outcomes is increased awareness and capacity among key stakeholders, strengthening of the interlaboratory research networks on plastic pollution, as I said, implementation effective plastic waste management models in remote mountain regions, develop policy recommendations and best practices for plastic waste management in high altitude areas, and greater engagement with international organizations to standardize methodologies and share research results. So, as I said before, we are starting. We have we were planning to start in a main area, which is in Santa Cruz Glacier in Argentina, that has a bordering area as well with Chile. We are working with Chile for doing that as well. The key stakeholder here is a municipality, but we plan to involve a national administration park of Argentina, the provincial consul agrarian of the state as well, the private sector, civil associations. So we are making the network for implementing the activities in the region. And why this place? Because it has quite broad legislation, so they have like a framework to implement the activities quite nice. I forgot to say that the country has a law regarding the inventories of national a national inventory of glaciers. So it's a national law that protects glacier around the country, but as well has an inventory that is updated every 5 years. It was updated last year, and there is all the information published in the Undersecretariat webpage. So the provincial has quite a lot of legislation as well that we can take advantage of that, as well as the municipality of Chalten, where is a place where we can start the activities. As you said, there are quite ordinance regarding the management of waste, inclusive some related especially of waste itself, like this one of biodegradable detergents, so water management, ban on single-use plastic. So there is a quite framework to go further with this type of activities. So we are developing some fact sheet that is for the inception workshop we are going to have, and the inception activities, and we are all the information be published in our webpage, so you can access if you want more information. I will try to, with the past of the months, to give more best news and results about the implementing of this project. And I think that this all, Mehrnoosh.
Thank you so much, Alberto, for the great presentation. We're very excited about this project, and there is a lot of great activities lined up for this year in both countries. And it was great to hear and also see all those stunning, beautiful photos of glaciers. Thank you to both of you, to all of our speakers. I don't see any questions in the chat box, but if you have any questions, please feel free to ask it now. I think we all agree that plastic waste has no place in the mountains and glaciers. We saw those beautiful photos. We want to keep them as pristine as they are. And with that, do reach out to us. You see the contact information for Alberto, Sergio, and myself. You can visit our webpage. We have other side events that are coming up in the future, and the videos of some of our previous side events is also uploaded to our website. If you couldn't find it, just simply Google plastic waste in the mountains, BRS conventions, and it'll come up. And I hope I'll see you soon. We all hope we see you soon in our future side events, but also in the BRS future meetings. Our COP is coming up end of April, and we hope to stay in touch with you, and do not hesitate to reach out. Thank you so much, everybody.